Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. And today I'm going to be bringing you another deck video based on Primal Clash. But actually this is really well timed because the ECC has just occurred, the European Challenge Cup I think it's called. And two of the top four players ran a deck very similar to this. And it really surprised a lot of people. It's a spin on an old classic Virizion Genesect. And I feel like the text that they used is going to be even more relevant in the upcoming format because of the fact that primals are going to be a thing and G-Booster doing 200 isn't even enough anymore. So what they actually played was a really thin Zubat, Crobat and Golbat line. I believe the person who came first just played a 1-1 and not even any Crobats, and the person who was top 4 played either a 1-1-1 or a 2-2-1 line. In here I'm running a 2-2-1 because I feel like it's more important to have a thicker line now that there's going to be primals in the format. But let me just show off the deck and explain the cards as I go along. So we all know what Virizion Genesect's good at, and we know that this deck is going to be even stronger coming into the new format because it gains a new favourable matchup in Kyogre. Primal Kyogre obviously has weakness to grass, and it basically forces your opponent to have special options in their deck to deal with VirGen, be it Headringers or Fire Techs or something like that, just to deal with VirGen, because naturally against Kyogre we're going to have a strong matchup. Also, if anyone wants to play Primal Groudon, we also have good weakness on them as well. So Virizion Genesect very strong type-wise, and also we know it's already a really strong deck. So we're starting off with 4 Virizion, Verdant Wind, amazing, obviously, helps us out against Seismitoad and stuff if that's going to stick around, which it most likely will, being one of the top 4 after all the city championships has been counted up and everything. And Seismitoad, Garbodor still did really well in the ECC as well. 2 actually UK-based players top 32 with that deck. So we can see it's really doing well and it's going to be popular. So Virizion really good against that deck because it has resistance to water, and Verdant Wind stops all our guys getting poisoned if we have grass energies on them. And that means that Seismitoad really doesn't do much damage to us at all. Also, of course, Emerald Slash setting up our attackers. We all know what VirGen does. I'm not going to explain it too much. This card, really strong. We max it out so that we can draw into it and start with it as frequently as possible. Next, we're using 3 Genesect DX. I am a big fan of the 4-3 split. I feel like 4-4 is kind of cloggy. So we're just sticking with 3. Genesect amazing. Red Signal, fantastic. It's only going to get better when people are using Primal Evolutions. They're going to try and hide them on the bench for a turn or 2, and then we can just red signal them up and kill them before they're ready for attacks and stuff like that. Genesect's just really strong. And Megalo Cannon, 120 snipe as well to the bench. That gets a lot better when you consider the Crobat and Golbat that we're going to play. So that snipe actually becomes relevant when usually it's sort of seen as wasted damage. But Genesect just really strong as well. Of course, we're utilising G-Booster as well for that big burst of damage. Still a threat to every regular EX deck and mirror matches and all that good stuff. And for Primals, it's going to be a threat because we're going to have Crobats and Golbats to increase that output. So, like I say, the players in the ECC just played a 1-1 or maybe a 2-2-1 line. I haven't seen the list, they've not released them, but we know that they played a thin line of bats, and I've decided to go for a 2-2-1 in here. So 2 of the Zubats that have free retreat, if they have no energy attached to them, they have free retreat, so it's a great ability. It just means that we can move our Zubat, if we ever start with it, straight into Virizion. So technically it's 2 more like decent starters for us in the deck because we can just retreat into Virizion easily, whereas Genesect is a bit more annoying to move this guy out of the active in the early turns. So Zubat, very good, only 40 HP, but that's rarely an issue. Then we have 2 Golbats. The reason why I feel like Crobat and Golbat are going to be so strong is because they resist fighting, so it's going to be amazing for Donphan. It really improves this matchup. I feel like VirGen is pretty much a 50-50, maybe a little bit behind Donphan usually, but having a 2-2-1 line of the Crobat is going to increase that to maybe a 60-40 in your favour, because it's difficult for them to knock out even Golbat with 70 HP. That resistance makes it very difficult for Donphan in the early turns. Also, we can put snipes on things. It makes the good math with Megalo Cannon if we can drop a Golbat and Megalo Cannon them with like a Muscle Band on or something. Usually we've seen Deoxys been teched in for that sort of number fixer. In here we've taken out the Deoxys because we need the space for the bats. So we're playing 2 Golbats and dropping a Golbat on primals such as Mega Gardevoir EX and Mega Manectric. Just one of these Golbats is going to be enough, plus the G Booster to get the knockout. And not many things can knock out these Primals in one hit, but we're sort of finding a way to do it in one turn, even if G Booster's only capped at 200. So Sneaky Bite, one way that we can deal with those two Primals, or Megas I should say. And then for the other Primals and Megas, we're going to have one Crobat in here. Surprise Bite doing the extra 30. So if you've stacked a Golbat onto a Crobat and you've focused it on one of these Megas or Primals, like I say, it could be either one, it means that we can get the one shot. Obviously, Genesect's going to find it easy to kill Kyogres because of weakness, but if they have weakness policy, we can still get over that with these bats, and against stuff like Aggron, we can use the Crobat to get that last resort. I like playing the Crobat personally because Donphan is a threat still. Even in Primal Clash being released, although it doesn't gain much from that set, Donphan's just been so strong lately that you can't really write it out because its strategy is just so disruptive. So having the one Crobat, it will stay around for 2-3 turns, and that buys you time to snipe around the bench or maybe stack up another Genesect. Of course, you can be red signaling throughout that period because Crobat only needs one energy attachment. So even if you're just sat with Crobat not even attacking, you can have him as a wall for 1 or 2 turns, forcing your opponent to have Lysanders and stuff, while you build up Genesects to maybe catch up against the Donphan, because sometimes VirGen does sort of need that extra time. So Crobat really helps out against the Donphan matchup, as well as having this Surprise Bite for 3 more damage counters that we can place to get these one-shots on Megas and stuff when we use a G-Booster. Also, just in general, it's a good map fixer having these Crobats and Golbats. Seeing as though we can put Muscle Band on Virizion, if we drop a Crobat or a Golbat, it can make the 90. So if we do that twice in a row, we can actually hit 180 with 2 hits with a Virizion and set up 2 Genesects in the ideal situation. And if that ever gets pulled off, I mean, you're going to be in such a good, strong position. Getting 2 prizes from the Virizion EX before you've even set up, like, while you're setting up your Genesects, that's just living the dream. And that's most of the Pokemon. There's a couple more in here. We've got the Jirachi EX, Stellar Guidance just ups our consistency. Virizion Genesect's one of these decks where you want to get your setup turn 2, and pretty much I'd like to sacrifice having the consistency of a Jirachi. Like, I don't mind it being a target on the bench if it means that we can get our setup more frequently, because Virizion Genesect, when it is set up, is difficult to break down and lose. So I just like having the Jirachi because it helps us get there. And finally, we're playing Mr. Mime. I feel like we still need to play Mime because Kyogre is a threat, and the way I see it, there's not too many good fire counters right now, and sometimes if they're going to be doing that 30 snipe to all of our bench, that can be enough to make, you know, cards like the new Bouffalant with a Muscle Band, then it would be able to kill like Genesects and Virizions, but only with the snipe damage. So having the Mime means that those numbers aren't as good for them, and it just means that we're going to be safe there. Also in mirror matches, especially if they're going to be playing bats as well, we don't want this 20 damage sniping from Megalo Cannon on our guys. We just don't want them to have that sort of accessible to them, so we'll sort of be healthier in the mirror as well. Next up for trainers, of course, we're playing the G-Booster. You have to do it. 200 damage is way too good, and that's what makes VirGen so strong. We're also playing a Chorus Mech. This means that we can booster, and then the following turn, manual attach and Chorus Mech to get a second booster off in a go, and that's just so deadly. Also, sometimes if you do start with Genesect, you can use a Chorus Mech to attach to it so that we can manually retreat without having to lose attachment for the turn, so that Virizion can still get set up in 2 goes. Next, we've got the Professor's Letter. Just searchable grass energy. You need to get your Virizion going, and this whole deck is about getting those grass energies, so Letter, very important there. 1 Tool Retriever. This is something that was notably played in the decks in the ECC, and I think it actually helped them win in the final, the player who used VirGen, against a really interesting Aromatisse deck with Florgus that run Jamming Nets and Hard Charms. And the fact that they could Tool Retriever away a jamming net, I think it was on their Genesect, then they could just G-Booster for game. So in that situation, it obviously came up trumps. But yeah, Tool Retriever mainly just to get rid of flare tools that are going to annoy us. Also, we can pick up a booster, put it onto something else, or we could pick up a Muscle Band and switch it for a booster if we've attached one to a Genesect. So Retriever, very useful. Next up for switching cards, we're playing one Escape Rope and one Switch. I just really enjoy this combination. Having a 1/1 of each gives us better options when we have a max count of Skylar in the deck. We can pick the one we want for the situation. Escape Rope can help us stall in the early turn sometimes, which is useful because then we can get an extra attack off with Virizion. And Switch is just Switch. If you're happy with the board state on your opponent's side, just use the Switch, not the Escape Rope. Next up, I've gone for 2 energy switches. This is another way that we can sort of counteract flare tools. If one of our Virizion has one attached to it and then it gets flare tooled the following turn, we can bench a new one, energy switch onto the new one, and do a manual attachment as well, so that we can get the turn 2 Emerald. It's just another out to flare tools. Also, if we've attacked with Virizion and survived, and we still have energy on there, once again, we can move it onto a Genesect to help us get a double booster combo going, and that's just so deadly. So, very important there. Next up, 2 VS Seeker. I only really have space for 2. It does serve a real useful purpose in here, not just for the draw supporters, but stuff like Shadow Triad that we play a 1 of in here, grabbing us back these Plasma Energies for catches, being able to respam that, and also the fact that we can put the Triad in the discard quite comfortably, knowing that we have VS Seekers for when we will need it. It's just a very important card in the deck. I only really have space for 2 though right now because those bats do clog up some room. Next up, 2 Megaphone. Obviously a huge ability focus in the deck. Every single one of our guys has an ability in the whole deck. So we need to Megaphone so that we can keep those abilities online. Also, we can get rid of Spirit Links in the early game, which can be disruptive. And we can get rid of, whatever else. Muscle Bands, Float Stones, you name it. Megaphone just helps us out in general matchups when we're not against Garbodor. Next, we're running 2 Super Scoop Ups. I like this with the Bat line in here. Acts as healing as well if Virizion's taken a punch to the face and we don't want it on the bench anymore, we can just pick it up. Also, we can pick up Jirachi so that it's less of a liability if we've got nothing better to pick up. But most of the time, this is going to be focused on the bats so that we can re-put that damage back on for a second big old booster to kill even the primals and megas if they're keeping up in that regard. Next, we've got 4 Ultra Ball. Maxing out this line gets us into our Virizions and Genesects as quickly as possible. And then, of course, in the late game, whereas in traditional VirGen decks, it looks like Ultra Ball's a bit of a dead draw, this stays live all game because we're always looking for bats to set up our board even further. Following that, we're just playing the 1 Muscle Band. I really only have space for 1. I'd love to put a second one in here. I've been thinking of cutting an energy. At the moment, I'm at 13, and I'll show them off in a minute. But whenever I go down to just 8 grasses, I always feel like if I've prized 1 or 2, I don't really have enough to go through the whole game. So at the moment, I've just got 1 Muscle Band in here. I'm trying to figure out a way to get a second one in. Very important. But because we have these bats, I feel like the numbers that Muscle Band give us are given to us via the bats anyway. So Muscle Band, obviously useful. Great against Donphan when you put it on Genesect. It can be really disruptive. Great when you put it on Virizions in the early game just to put some damage on there. And it works for the 70 damage and then the 100 from the Megalo. So there's great reasons to play this card. I just don't have enough space for more right now. On to supporters. We've got the 1 Triad that I mentioned earlier. It grabs back your Plasma Energies, which is very important for the red signals. It can grab back a Genesect if you've run out. Also, it can grab Colress Machine so that we can do that second booster thing. Very important. And of course, we can get back G-Booster if it's been megaphoned away or if we've died with the Genesect on it and we've got another one ready to go. Triad serves a lot of good purposes in here, and having VS Seeker just means we have access to it that much more often. 1 Lysander, even though we have the 4 red signals, whenever we have our abilities locked, we're going to have to go for a Lysander. Also, it's just another helpful card against Donphan, improving our matchup there. And just having an extra catcher in the deck is so important. And it means we don't have to attach a Plasma every turn if we want to capture something. We can use Lysander if we really need to. I've not used Lysander all too much. I'm thinking of cutting it, to be fair. But at the moment, I like having the extra option, and it just means that we have so much ability to capture things, even in the opening turns, because Genesect doesn't normally have the ability to capture stuff up in the early game, because we want to be attaching manually to Virizions rather than Genesect. But Lysander gives us that option, and it means we can take cheap prizes in the early game and stuff like that. Next up, we've got the 4 Skylers. I really like Skylar in VirGen. It just gives us the most consistent way of getting into stuff. Gets us our booster when we need it. It gets us energy in the form of Professor's Letter or Colress Mech. It can get us VS Seekers for the future turns. It can get us, Scoop Ups, Ultra Balls, whatever we need. Skylar gets it for us. So there we go. Then we have the pretty standard 4N and 4 Sycamore. You got to play this in most decks pretty much. And just great, especially in VirGen, because Virizion's normally a sacrificial pawn, setting up your Genesects for the late game. So we're often going to be using Ns disruptively rather than offensively. And then we have the 4 Sycamore for that powerful draw that we all need. Finally, onto energy. Like I mentioned, we're playing 13 in here. So we've got the 4 Plasmas. We need it for Genesect's Red Signal. It's just such a powerful ability. Why wouldn't you use this? Also acceleratable via Colress Mech, so that we can get a double booster turn going. And that's really important and a great feature in VirGen, pretty much. And then we are playing, like I said, 9 Grass Energies. I feel like 9 is the right number at the moment right now. I just don't feel comfortable enough with 8. Potentially you could play something like 8 if you're going to play a trump card or something like that. But I just feel like sometimes you can really run out of energy really quick, especially because we're going to be shifting into a format where booster is going to be essential for the majority of your games. Sometimes you can get away with just using Megalo Cannon once or twice in a game, but here, because Primal's going to have so much HP, and some are Megas, obviously, we really need to booster turn after turn, and having the 9 gives us a bit more leverage in that regard. It means we're never going to be running out, really, unless we're in a really sticky spot. So 9 just lets us use VirGen, and lets us use Virizion as the sacrificial pawn without worrying about the 2 energy being lost, and it means we can set up Genesects for the whole game, even with 1 or 2 boosters. So that was the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I shed some light on the ECC as well. A very good tournament here. I was gutted not to go. I was working that weekend, but basically it surprised everyone having some bats in a VirGen deck, and it really seemed to work out. And I feel like it's going to be a strategy going forward, because that extra damage can really help against Primals and Megas. So I hope you enjoyed the deck, guys. Leave comments down below. I've been Joe from Omnipoke. See you next time.